Yeah, you don't grow up thinking that you want to be a tattoo removal expert,
Yeah.
do you? One of the things that we knew from the start is that we had to build the infrastructure that would service a 300 location business, not a 10 location business, to take a risk and to get something 80% right and get it going rather than wait to get it 100% right.
Company you admire most?
Any company that starts from scratch and builds
Any particular hobby that stands out for you?
work.
Work.
Zenoti presents Growth Diaries, the fascinating stories behind the best brands in beauty, wellness, and fitness. Hosted by Sudhir Koneru.
Tattoos, they say, are symbols of commitment. But life is uncertain. Commitments change. So what do you do then? Well, you can remove a tattoo using laser. In order to do it safely, you need to find an expert. Even a few years ago, it was difficult to find such an expert. But all that changed in 2019 when Mark Evans, Chris Chambers, and Peter Chapman merged four of the largest tattoo removal brands in North America to form Removery, a brand focused on laser tattoo removal. And what a brand it is. In less than 5 years, it has over 150 locations across the US, Canada, and Australia. It's a fascinating story of finding the right opportunity, focusing on the mission, fighting adversity, and emerging successful. And to tell us more about this story today, we have Jo Kelton, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Removery. Jo, great to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me, Sudhir.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. I thought, before we get started, it would be great to hear more about your background prior to starting Removery. Obviously, Removery is a very large business, so knowing, what all you were doing prior to that will kind of frame our discussion around Removery.
Sure. So I've worked in healthcare my whole career, first as a provider, as a physical therapist for a number of years, and then in multi-unit physical therapy and medical companies. I had my own business in Sydney and then in Singapore. And then I joined Dental Corp, which was a dental consolidation based in Sydney that went from one dental practice up to 600 across Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And that's where I met Mark Evans and Chris Chambers.
Great. So dental practice and its scale. So you did the individual work as a practitioner of physiotherapy, etc., or other health care services, and went to doing it at very large scale with a certain team. But then how did you go from dental to tattoos? I mean, that seems a large leap.
Seems like a leap. So we spent about a year thinking about what we were going to do next. And so we did a lot of research in the medical specialty space. So initially in chronic pain and then in allergy and immunology medicine. And at the same time, we were rolling a little bit with tattoo removal. We knew that it was an interesting sphere to get into and thought that maybe one day it would be big enough for us to get into properly. When we were traveling from Australia to the US to meet with allergy medicine practitioners, we ended up meeting with some tattoo removal businesses. One of them had 20 locations. They were based in Cincinnati. One of them had 5 in Boston, and the other had 5 based in Austin. All of them had really interesting but similar challenges in that they'd pretty much reached about the limit of their span of control. And so they were ripe for some capital investment and ultimately some management.
Great. So that's interesting. And so you were in Australia at the time. So
Yes.
you actually moved back here as part of setting up Removery.
That's right.
So you acquired these early businesses to get them going, kind of stuff at scale. And so what made you feel that, these businesses which were running fine on their own, that bringing them under one brand and a larger brand and scale is going to make it better for both the brand and the customer kind of stuff?
They all had really similar vision in that they wanted to be the global leader. They wanted to be the biggest player, and they saw a huge opportunity because they'd started from scratch and then they'd been able to build their own business in their own cities that they lived and worked in. And none of them found that particularly hard. So there was obviously a business to be had. All of them had expanded, the one based in Boston out into Philly and Buffalo and New York, and the one in Austin to Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. So there was some scale, but they all struggled to find that larger scale. So they didn't have the back end infrastructure to be able to expand more than they already had.
So given that you all had experience running a 600 chain dental business and understanding the processes that it would take, I guess you had that value to bring to the table and these people could see that. So I'm assuming this was in 2019 that you acquired these businesses and launched Removery. So 2019 was just before COVID, if I do the math. So what happened kind of stuff?
Yeah, 2019, I moved to Austin with our CEO, Tom Weber, and our CFO, Aidan Tuddy. And we set up an office and basically spent the next 6 months really trying to understand the businesses that we'd acquired and, more importantly, the customers of those businesses. We had then made the decision towards the end of 2019 that we would be able to rebrand the 3 businesses under one banner. So we'd done a lot of work in putting in back office systems and infrastructure while we understood the customer and the businesses and the industry. And then once we'd made the decision to rebrand under a single brand and what that brand was going to be, which took a lot, then we shut down on the 20th of March 2020 like everybody else.
The beauty, wellness, and fitness industries touch our lives like no other industry does. And every brand that has succeeded in this industry has a wonderful story behind it. They have stories that engage, stories that we can learn from, stories that inspire all of us. And I'm here to bring you these stories and introduce you to the wonderful people behind these brands. So if you're enjoying this, do press like and hit the bell icon to subscribe, so you'll be the first to know when a new episode comes in.
So we used that time to really try and galvanize the teams in the individual businesses and to use that time to build a new website. And we decided to go all in and rebrand during that time.
Okay, so that time worked out to do all the work you need to do for scaling purposes, I guess, overall. Great. So, that's one thing in terms of getting through that. But then how did you decide what is the size and scale of this opportunity? Because you said these people could open stores and were successful. But for you, you need to have a bigger plan if you're doing that. So how did you size up the market?
Yeah, the research tells us that 30% of Americans have a tattoo. So that's 100 million.
Wow.
So the same stats apply in Australia and in Canada. So of those people, around a third are dissatisfied with at least one of their tattoos. And everybody that has a tattoo, the average is that they have 3.3 tattoos. So we've got a whole lot of people with tattoos, a whole lot of people with multiple tattoos, and a lot of people that are dissatisfied with their tattoos. So when you do the math on that, with our average sale price for a package of tattoo removal, the total addressable market is significant in the US.
Wow. I wouldn't have ever thought that. Doing the math the way you said in terms of the 30% of the people have a tattoo and 1 in 3 of them want to make a change to that. So that's a huge size and overall. But then I guess dental space, it's a very medical thing. When it's a problem, you come, but how did you go about doing marketing for these people? Because you had to catch them at the right place, right time. What was your strategy in that area?
It's definitely one of the things that we had underestimated the difficulty in. Because in dental, you just put up a sign on the door and people come in and everyone has teeth, and so everyone needs a dentist. So for the first year, we were focused on designing the service that we wanted to deliver. So making sure that when people came into our studios, and at that point we had 33 locations, towards the end of that year we had 39, we were really trying to codify best practice across those studios and ensure that it was repeatable and it was scalable when we did expand. People were then finding us through just Google search tattoo removal and they would come in. So there's that sort of layer of people that know that they're dissatisfied and want to do something about it. But then what we found was having a tattoo and not liking it was not enough motivation for people to search. So we had to generate the demand in the market. And so the way that we've gone about that is through the funnel. So initial years was just capturing the demand that was already out there. And then gradually we're moving up through the funnel. So if you imagine the people that know that they have a tattoo and they're dissatisfied, then the people that know that they have a tattoo that don't know they're dissatisfied, we're serving ads through them, through social media, through Google search, and through other like PMAX. So it's a similar display advertising. So we're trying to get them to feel like, that might be me. I might not like my tattoo, and then gradually bring them along the journey to the point where they're ready to buy.
I'm sure a lot of people don't know it's possible to remove a tattoo. They're itself there to be educated, kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And you have a very big social media following, right? I think you have more than 150,000 plus people follow you on Instagram, as an example. And so how did you go about building this kind of a social media presence?
From a social media perspective, one of the businesses that we acquired, we used the base as the original social media presence. And gradually what we've done is built lookalike audiences from the people that start treatment with us. We build those audiences in Facebook, in Meta, and so gradually we can advertise to those people and then they'll follow us organically. We also have a significant influencer group that work with us. They're removing their tattoos, and so their followers will become our followers. Everything that we do is social first, and so we truly believe that we can build our brand through social media because that's where our customers are.
And I'm assuming it would be referrals will also be a big way, right? A lot of people who have tattoos may also have friends who have similar interests of having a tattoo or something, and they refer friends.
Yeah, it's interesting that that doesn't happen as much as you would think, because there's no real shared understanding of whether tattoo removal is possible. People don't tend to talk about it with their friends. They talk about getting tattoos, but they don't often talk about removing them. And so we're trying to guide that conversation a little bit more with having some referral programs and having our influencers start to break down the barriers in talking about tattoo removal. Historically, there's been an element of perhaps shame or transformation that's being felt with tattoo removal. And so it's not a conversation that you might go up to a friend and say, hey, I made this really bad mistake and I'm getting it removed. And equally, it's a hard conversation to have with a friend like, hey, I don't like your tattoo, maybe you should get it removed. So there is some hesitation in that, and that's why Google reviews become so important to us, because they become the proxy for a trusted friend or a trusted advisor.
Great. I think Google reviews work in so many industries, and looks like it's far more relevant for you than most average one.
Yeah, we have, this year to date, we have 10,000 five-star reviews.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Cool. And so after COVID, obviously you stabilized the operations, got everything going, and then you continued your growth, right, in terms of acquiring and opening your own stores as well. So do you want to give a little color of how many of your stores are opened by you versus acquisition? And
it's pretty much 50-50. So of our 150 stores, 74 are acquisition sites and 76 are de novo sites.
okay.
So we have made a few more acquisitions, but then we've folded them into studios that we already have. So it's about even.
Yeah, so that means, like, it is something which you're organically growing yourself, and it is completely company owned. This is not a franchise business, right?
That's right,
So yeah, that's very different. 150 stores, company owned, isn't very common. It's most of them are franchise kind of stuff. So it's quite impressive. But a business at that scale, all company owned, then how do you go about managing it at that scale? Because if it's franchise, at least somebody has invested interest to run it. But in your case, how do you do that at your scale?
I think it's a couple of ways. There's the bottom-up way that our studio teams are very incentivized to own their own business. So we have a great bonus structure, a great commission structure for our studio teams. And then from the top-down perspective, for 150 stores, we have 12 regional managers. So they look after their portfolio of studios. They're out visiting them all the time. They're on the road 3 weeks out of 4. I visit studios. I'm on the road about 1 week a month. I'm heading to Chicago tonight. And it's great. That's where we learn the most, is going out and visiting the studios, hearing from customers, hearing from our teams, really understanding what's happening, what are their challenges day to day, what's important to them, and how do we find more great customers and more great team members.
Okay. So you have a whole network and hierarchy of association of how to manage, and that works at scale, I guess, for you. And so, but at the business of this scale, then how do you go about finding employees? Where do you get them from? Because I am not familiar if there are places where you can go get certified for something like this. And then how do you manage them to do well?
Yeah, you don't grow up thinking that you want to be a tattoo removal expert, do you? Oh, I certainly didn't. So it was second to marketing. I think our greatest challenge is, firstly, all of our original acquisitions told us that their biggest challenge was recruitment. So we did the normal thing that people would do and hired a great recruiter. And so then we found that the challenge was not recruitment, it was actually the whole talent life cycle. So recruiting, training, onboarding, actually getting people to understand our customer and our business. And so in 2020, we started our Removery Academy, where we bring people into Austin, we train people, they go through 4 weeks of training. Part of that is in a classroom, part of that is on the job, and we graduate them through the Removery Academy as fully licensed tattoo removal experts.
Great. So that's like almost a profession which nobody would have known of, as you said earlier, kind of thing.
And I think it's one of our greatest things that we're really proud of, is almost creating this profession for people. And it's a career that 90+% of our team members have tattoos. They're in the industry, and this is something that they really feel like they can call their own.
And it should be a nice profession because it's a safe profession from what I've seen of the videos of how the tattoo removal process is and everything. Compared to getting a tattoo, I think removing a tattoo is a far quicker and safer process painless process than getting one.
Well, I've done both. So I think in terms of pain, they're probably equal. Removing a tattoo, the treatment takes 30 seconds to come in, but you have to come in multiple times. So there is some discomfort, there is some anxiety associated with it because it's a laser and they're not common. But overall, it's a relatively discomfort-free experience. Our 3 pillars for clinical excellence are safe, effective, and optimal. And safe always comes first for us.
Great. So you said you actually gotten a tattoo. I did get to see that your CEO had a tattoo removed in the store once on a YouTube video. But what tattoo did you get that you had to remove?
We actually got matching ones at the same time, and we're having a race to see who can remove it first.
Oh, okay.
So removal is somewhat based on general health, and so somewhat based on what your body is doing with the ink. So we're getting treatments at the same time, we got the tattoo at the same time, and currently I'm winning.
Okay.
That's all that counts.
Great. Cool, sounds good. So going back to our employee stuff, so finding and hiring is one thing, but in terms of managing employees at scale, how do you manage your performance and dashboards, or how do you reward people? How has that process been for Removery?
It's been an evolution. So we don't manage our studio teams on a single KPI. They're managed on a range of KPIs, which we feel is a balanced view of how the studio is performing. So all of our studios have what we call a health score, and that's based on their conversion rates, as well as their packages that they're selling, as well as how people are purchasing those packages. And all those metrics come together to form this health score. All of our studios need to be operating with a health score of above 50 out of 100, and the regional managers manage direct to those. We do have dashboards that all studio teams can see. We use Power BI. Zenoti feeds into Power BI. We're a very, very data-driven business, and so everything that we do is based on the metrics that we see.
Cool. So I think all these investments in metrics and data-driven and BI, etc., are things which would have been harder for a smaller business to do. I'm assuming at your scale, you're able to invest in all this to manage and guide performance in the right way.
100%. One of the things that we knew from the start is that we had to build the infrastructure that would service a 300 location business, not a 10 location business. So even from the start, we replaced all of the technology in all of the businesses, including, for the most part, lasers in every business. So our tech stack looks very different to what we had acquired originally in 2019.
Growth Diaries is brought to you by Zenoti, the software trusted by over 30,000 salons, spas, med spas, and fitness studios.
Given that scale, one of the other things I'm assuming I heard about your business is that you actually have a unified call center. So you don't have to call to the individual stores. And so how does that work? What does the call center do versus what does the store do?
Yeah, really good question. Our call center is, I think, the heart and soul of the business. Every lead that comes in through our website, through social media, goes into the call center. The call center does both inbound and outbound outreach to those leads. Their job is to get the leads to a position where they're ready to make an appointment. And so pretty much every lead that comes in, and that's, up to 10,000 a week, is touched by our call center. Mm-hmm. Our best call center team members are booking around 1,000 people every month, and those people are turning up to the studios. We also have a customer service team and a customer care team. So the customer care team looks after any customer that has an aftercare inquiry, or they might have something like a blister. So they're not unanticipated, but people still do need sometimes to have help with those. And the customer service team do a lot of rescheduling. So if our teams are unwell, they can't come into the store, then we have to reschedule a full day's treatment. So we have a customer service team that does that. We do bounce calls between the contact center and the studio. So if it's something that the studio can answer, then the phone in the studio will ring for 60 seconds. It bounces right back to the contact center if it's not answered. So I think that is one of our best investments that we've made. We love our call center team. They're amazing. They're, the people that come in day after day, they talk to our customers. They're often the first impression, and they sound wonderful on the phone.
I guess, again, the same applies that call centers dedicatedly trained for a large chain, so you can deliver that experience for your customer.
And it's also they have no bias towards booking start of day or end of day appointments. Having a centralized team to do that takes away any of the studio team's willingness or unwillingness to book those appointment times.
Yeah. And you also mentioned, obviously, given that all leads, whether it's Google or anything, comes to your call center and you have a data warehouse, you track which leads convert, how soon.
Yep. We know.
How do you assess all that to drive your spend?
Yeah, so everything that comes in by lead source, we know what the propensity of that lead to start treatment is, even by the exact ad that they clicked on to go through to become a lead. So we tag all of our ads so that we can get that information. We review that information on a weekly basis and work through what are the next ads or what's the next creative or content that we need to drive more bookings. So it's, again, very data-driven.
Given that you're instrumenting all your data, how do you learn more about which marketing areas you should spend more on or the value of each marketing you're doing?
We know that different lead types need a different customer journey in order for them to get from awareness of tattoo removal or awareness that they want tattoo removal through to the day that they start. And some of those people that come in, let's say via Google search, they're already searching for tattoo removal. So from the time that they complete a lead form to the day they start is less than 5 days. Other people who we're serving ads upstream to are the people that they might have previously taken a year to go and find all the information that they wanted and understand, does it work? How does it work? Where do I get the best results? We're creating automated journeys for them through our multimedia messaging platform so that we can feed them the information that we know that they want so that they can compress their journey. So something that might have taken a year, we can get down to 30 days.
So it's very amazing how tattoo removal is such a unique business that you can apply all these principles of how do you do marketing, how do you do call center, how do you do, which enables it to be a very highly scalable business. So you clearly run into something which works well to drive to scale.
So far.
Yes. Okay. So outside of that, I also believe that you do some community and social work, and it was hard for me to fathom how can a tattoo removal be that. So maybe you can give us some color on that.
Yeah, we have a program called Initiative where we provide free tattoo removal to people that have had a hard time. So they might have been previously incarcerated, they might have been a gang member, they might have been a victim of human trafficking, and they're at a time now that they want to change their life for the better. some of their tattoos might hold them back from that. So face tattoos or tattoos that really create a bad memory for them. So in the case of human trafficking, they might have been applied against their will. So we give away 150 tattoo full packages every 6 months. And so then we take those people all the way through to full removal of their tattoo, and it changes their life.
That's nice. It's surprising how removing a tattoo can be so important for a social. I mean, it's not surprising, rather, it is so, can have such a big impact on them.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even with a tattoo that you might look at and say, you know, that's a nice tattoo, or that's something that certainly wouldn't be such an emotional burden to people. But depending on when they got it, what they were going through when they got it, it can create such a bad memory. And one of the tattoos that, you know, I guess we see a lot is someone that comes in and says they might have a beautiful butterfly that's this big. And they'll come in and say, I've got a tattoo that's this big, it's terrible, I can't go anywhere, I can't go to the beach, I haven't worn shorts or like a bathing suit for 12 years. And then they come in and you see their little butterfly tattoo and it's beautiful. But for them, it's such an emotional impediment for them living their life because it doesn't represent who they are today.
Nice, interesting. Great. So going forward then, so, you know, how do you see the future of Removery in terms of, you know, whether it's scale, or where do you see it next 5 years, you know?
So we plan to continue growing. We'll grow US, Canada, Australia. We see our footprint doubling at least in those markets. And then we'll be evolving to new markets. I think the most logical one is to move into the UK, into Western Europe, and then potentially Asia.
Cool. I guess it would be pretty easy once you've figured out all the scalable parameters. It's going to be, I'm assuming, opening each studio will be that much more cost efficient, and the P&L and the will work out very well for you. Great. And as a separate aside question, like, how do you see any impact of AI? We all talk about AI a lot, and you're a business at scale. And how will AI impact your business in the next 2-3 years?
I think it will have a lot of impact in analysis of leads or the way people behave through the funnel. So how we get leads, how we treat those leads, but then also in our call center, how we're analyzing the leads, how probably we're interacting with those leads as well. It may get to a point where we can look at photographs of tattoos and be able to predict a lot more of the removal process, how long it might take, what settings that we should use that we don't do as much of now. We do rely a lot on historical data, and so our treatment settings are always evolving. But I think AI opens that door to be like a lot more data-driven using huge models.
Yeah, cool. And I think, yeah, if you are able to process your leads in a more efficient way using AI and other things, it might actually improve the profit margins of the overall business entity, kind of. So as such, great. So as part of this thing, we also have a few rapid fire kind of questions just to get to know you a little more. So do you know what trait stands out which you would attribute most for your success?
Resilience.
Great. Yeah, cool. And what advice would you have for any new entrepreneur?
Be prepared to fail, but also to take a risk and to get something 80% right and get it going rather than wait to get it 100% right.
Great. That's so very true of all entrepreneurs. You should keep adapting and kind of stuff, right? So, and any regret, anything that you would do differently when you look back at the journey of Removery?
I don't think we would say that we have any huge regrets or we would do anything differently. I think we learn from everything that we did wrong, and so by not doing it wrong, we might be still on a different path. I don't know.
Yeah. Only thing is, you could wish there was no COVID. It would have been much faster, right? I mean, that's out of your control.
Maybe we wouldn't have rebranded.
Yeah. So why should someone choose Removery as a customer?
We're the only people in the world that have done 1.3 million tattoo removal treatments. We have all of the data from all of those treatments, and our new treatment settings are based on that. So we're the safest, we're the best, we're the most effective.
Yeah, simply the sheer data will make such a big difference, I guess. Cool. And what's the most favorite tattoo or something you've seen in your career?
I can't really answer that because we never like to make judgments about tattoos because for people, they get them for a reason and that
Yes.
reason's valid at the time. So
That's a good point. Okay. Company you admire most?
any company that starts from scratch and builds, I don't know a name of anyone. I think Rachel is a great company to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
But
I agree. Anything that starts from scratch and builds value for the early employees and all that stuff. So, any particular hobby that stands out for you?
work.
Work. And how do you relax?
In Austin, getting out onto the lake, anything to do with water. I think coming from Australia, we're all very comfortable and really enjoy water and summer and sunshine. So happy.
So, yeah, Jo, thanks a lot for all that information. I mean, it's clearly been an amazing journey for Removery to get to such a high scale so fast. It required, obviously, perseverance during the COVID time and really finding that idea and realizing, narrowing into the idea and knowing all the things you can do well. And I guess your story is very different in that it's all about scale. So someone had to be more prepared with all the background and the knowledge of having worked in a larger scale medical practice or dental practice chain. And you brought all that to apply to this. And that shows the velocity with which you were able to create this business. So thanks a lot for your time and sharing all your thoughts.
Thanks for having me.
Growth Diaries is brought to you by Zenoti.